LFG KWTD. I'm on ad clear. The words that strike fear in the hearts of Destiny players everywhere. It's an epidemic. With Root of Nightmares having barely any mechanics to deal with, many players think that they can just say they're on ad clear. And that gives them a free pass to just do whatever they want for the whole raid. Our power levels have never been higher. The skill required to complete a raid has never been lower. And yet, we have people who say they want to be on ad clear and are failing to do that. The issue is not that people want to be on ad clear, because having someone really good at killing enemies is very beneficial to your team. It makes the jobs of the people doing the mechanics much, much easier. The issue is that people use the excuse of I'm on ad clear to really mean I'm not doing mechanics, but in reality are also not really that capable of ad clear. Ad clear does not just mean ignoring mechanics and standing in the back doing nothing like you're in a patrol zone or something, which, by the way, Neo Muna Patrol has harder hitting enemies than a normal mode raid. Ad clear means I'm gonna slay out and murder every enemy as they're spawning in. Ad clear is not an excuse to slack off, and people are treating it exactly like that. In light of this, today's video is gonna be me showing you how to truly be the world's 152nd best ad slayer in the game on the Planet's Encounter and on Nezarec, the two most common places I have seen people complain about. I'm not really going to be covering the first two encounters as they rarely pop up in people's complaints, and those fights are much easier than the final two that I don't think we need to talk about them explicitly. You can just use the things you learn here on those fights if need be. There are two different damage strategies you may find yourself in when doing Root of Nightmares as of this video: Thunderlord spam with Divinity or Rocket spam. Both are legit strategies, both work just fine, but there are times where teams that are struggling with ad clear may want to use a Thunderlord strategy. This is simply because a machine gun is a much better weapon at ad clear than a rocket is. It is considerably more efficient. We're talking multiple magnitudes more efficient. And what's also nice is that your Divinity player can run their own machine gun and basically use it for the entire fight, since their machine gun ammo is not going to be used on the boss. They're going to be using Divinity instead. Now, if your team is using rockets, that's totally okay. It's probably the more popular strategy as of right now anyway, but it does mean that you'll have to use something else. Probably. Fortunately, there are many really good primary and special weapons to help us do ad clear. While a double primary setup is possible, it's not something I really encourage to pretty much anyone. I would encourage double special, way more than double primary. I would encourage using a machine gun and literally unequipping your other two weapons, if that were possible, over double primary. I think the number one gun you could use for this place, if you are a self-proclaimed ad clearer, is a wave frame grenade launcher. Waveframe GLs are one of the most efficient weapons in the game when it comes to ad clear, because they can do the damage of one shot of the average special weapon to an unlimited amount of targets. Regular grenade launchers can also do this, but they are much more skill-based than a waveframe, which only requires you to shoot the ground near some enemies, and their effective radius is a bit smaller. In the normal version of the raid, this weapon is going to one-shot all red bar enemies, and if it's not doing that in Master, it's getting really close. Now, if you're a new player or a newer player, maybe you didn't play last year, I will say that wave frames are not in high supply right now. Harsh Language, a new world drop, is probably going to be your best bet in terms of availability, unless something shows up from Xur or Dares of Eternity. I also think I would opt for a simpler perk setup on this weapon, maybe something like Stats for All and Adrenaline Junkie, because they're perks that just do a thing automatically. There's no thinking required, but honestly, any halfway decent perks on this gun will be just fine, and it's pretty tough to whiff perk-wise on this gun. But to those of you who were playing last year, maybe did some raiding, Forbearance from Vow of the Disciple with Chain Reaction is easily the #1 wave frame, because the chain reaction explosion can hit targets outside of the wave of damage from a wave frame and thus gives you a bit more reach. Explosive Personality is a runner-up, able to get both stats and One for All, which is a craftable wave frame from Season 16 if you got the pattern for it. You can activate both of these perks in a single shot if you hit enough targets, which is going to give you even more damage on your shots, even more reload speed on your shots, plus bonus stats for what can be on a near permanent basis as long as you keep hitting shots. You can even bust out Dead Messenger to hit an even wider range of targets since you'll have multiple waves going out at multiple angles. One weakness of the wave frame is that it is a poor big target killing weapon. So if you're on Colossus duty, I'd probably opt for something that deals single target damage a bit better, shotgun fusion, something like that. The wave frame pick is more for the true ad clearers, but on normal mode, you can still toss out some wave frame shots on a Colossus and totally be okay. If you're wanting to try your luck with a non-wave frame grenade launcher, Prodigal Return from Season 20 is a good option, and it's available to everybody. Although Salvager's Salvo from the Exotic Kiosk, the Season 13 ritual weapon, is still fantastic, and it also has chain reaction. When it comes to primary weapons, a lot of them are going to slay out pretty hard at this point, especially with the damage buff that a lot of primary weapons just got. Your traditional good exotic ad-slaying primaries are also going to be good here, preferably with the Catalyst. Here's a list of good ones. Osteostriga, Quicksilver Storm, the Huckleberry, Vex Mythoclast, Sunshot, Taraba, any exotic bow, but most notably Trinity Ghoul, plus many, many more that I'm sure the comment section will elaborate on. This is not even including special weapons like Agar Scepter, which remains one of the best weapons in the game for ad killing. Legendary weapon-wise, I think SMGs are still very, very strong options. Funnel Web, Callus Mini Tool, Ikelos, take your pick. It almost doesn't even matter what the perks are, as the SMG itself is going to be doing most of the work here. You just need to be a little more aggressive if you're playing with an SMG, which, if you're watching this, I'm imagining you're probably not playing too aggressively. That's okay, but it's just something to practice if you want to use an SMG. If you are more passive, I cannot recommend Trinity Ghoul enough. I know it's an exotic, especially if you have the Catalyst. You barely even need to aim this thing. You'll probably notice that I haven't spoken about builds at all, and that's because I want to focus purely on weapons, as you could have a completely trash build, but as long as your weapon choices are good, that's all you're gonna need. I have a bunch of builds on the channel already, but this is also going to vary from season to season, and I want this video to be relevant no matter what the season is. Not to mention that you don't even need to have a good build equipped to be a good ad clearer. Okay, so you have the gear now, but there's more to ad clear than just equipment. In order to be a top ad clearer, you need to learn spawns and proper positioning. Not only where enemies spawn in, but when and where to stand to take them out immediately as they spawn in. Let's talk about the planet's encounter first. The footage you're watching is on normal mode. We'll talk master mode adjustments as needed. This place is full of scions with a Centurion and Phalanx spawning in with each wave on an alternating basis. They are going to spawn in two different places, either on the very top shelf or down the stairs. This is the area where the boss is mostly going to roam. Now, if you're feeling saucy, you can actually just play up in this area, but the big risk is the boss booping you across the world and spraying fire at you. It is possible to survive those boops, but those less skilled at movement may find themselves falling to their death quite frequently. In one example, you can see the boss is all over me the entire time spraying fire, and if you don't have some sort of heal to help you, the boss is going to wear you down. This is where Bonk Hammer on Titan or Devour or something like that is going to do wonders. In a different example, the boss does not look my direction a single time, and I'm free to do whatever I want, wherever I want. You really need to keep eyes on the boss to determine what you can and can't do. My safer, but also aggressive recommendation is to play on the top right or top left plate with a waveframe grenade launcher and not directly in the middle of the room on the low ground. This angle gives you a direct line of sight on the enemies as they are spawning in, and they happen to spawn in a way that gives you a perfect lineup for your waveframe grenade launcher, and you can hit both sides of the arena in order to help out your other ad clear teammate. One or two shots will pretty much kill everything in these waves. And remember, when using a wave frame, you don't want to aim directly for the enemy, but rather in front of the enemy that you're trying to hit. Ideally, you'll be hitting as many enemies as you can in a single shot, but there's no need to always wait for the perfect shot. You can clean up any loose ends with the primary of your choice, or if you just want to spam your grenade launcher some more, there's nothing wrong with that. Just watch your ammo if you're only using special. If you're using a Thunderlord strat, then the Divinity player should be an ad clear person with their machine gun just crapping on everything, and the other player can be using a waveframe grenade launcher. You're basically going to live in this spot for the most part, and what's good about being positioned here is that you can help kill scions that spawn on this plate for the person doing the mechanic so that they're not getting booped or crossfired or anything like that. In terms of spawns, they are going to be quite frequent. I'm not going to lie, didn't really bother to find the timing windows or anything like that. They're frequent enough that you should just be focusing on killing ads unless your team calls for you for whatever reason. It's pretty obvious where they're going to spawn in, as they only spawn in one of two places, and there's a really big animation showing that they are spawning in. A big thing to note, though, is the Colossus. When standing in this position, as soon as you kill the Centurion that spawns on your side, the Colossus is going to spawn in on your side. And where you are standing is exactly where the Colossus spawns in. But I also encourage standing here because it will make you pay attention to the Centurion and when it dies. As you're killing the Centurion, or notice it dying, simply step out of the way of the Colossus. You can hide behind line of sight. There's a little pillar right in the middle of the plate, and you let your teammate handle it. On Master, this is much more punishing, as a stomp from a Colossus is probably going to kill you outright, forcing you to pay attention. On normal, it'll hurt a little bit, but if you ignore it, you'll still probably be completely okay, assuming you have high resilience or not one shot or something like that. Ideally, your teammate will be killing the Colossus as it spawns in anyway, and as the ad killer, giving them a heads up that the Centurion is spawning in or it's dying will help keep you alive in return. On Master, I completely understand playing more passively, playing in the middle of the room. That's fine. Again, Trinity Ghoul is going to be an absolute menace here. Waveframes also work, but the more you get comfortable on normal mode, the more you can take that knowledge into Master mode. I would try floating around the lower side platforms instead of the upper ones if you don't want to be right in the middle, and then maybe work your way up to the upper platforms if you're feeling a little saucy. On normal, planet rotators should be able to handle the couple of waves of scions that roll in with an SMG or something like that. Honestly, you could probably just melee them to death, and then the Colossus can be easily handled by something like a Riptide Chill Clip Fusion Rifle. On Master, it's going to take a bit more to bring them down, and I would highly encourage coordinating with your team to make sure that you don't have scions coming in at the same time as a Colossus, because that can be pretty bad. Again, though, a Riptide Chill Clip Fusion will do some good work if you don't have something like Conditional Finality, although if you want to play it really safe, there's nothing wrong with Arbalest, or giving yourself Radiant via Solar Melee, and then machine gunning down the champion from afar. Not really that much else to it. If you are fully dedicated to ad clear, if you truly have no other job here, then two people standing in these positions just spamming waveframes or Trinity Ghoul or machine guns should be able to make very short work of the enemies. I do also encourage killing the shield totem things as they pop up because they're kind of annoying. Don't just leave them up if you have the option. Fortunately for Nezarec, you don't have to change a single thing about your loadout. Both damage strategies work here as well, and waveframes shine even more here because of how the enemies spawn in. Most spawns feature very tightly clustered Cabal, making the waveframe a fantastic choice, along with any sort of weapon that features explosion type perks or chaining damage. This is where I would recommend close range weapons considerably more than the previous encounter because of the shape of the arena, but that doesn't mean something like Trinity Ghoul or Aggers is suddenly bad now. You just shoot arrows from much closer. It's not a big deal. Trespasser gang? I'm not gonna lie. Trespasser is completely unironically good here. The perk is literally designed to kill something, move to the next target, kill with the perk active, and then you just chain that forever. And because normal mode enemies have such little health, you can chain it really easily. Honestly, the biggest problem you're going to have in Nezarec is just eating a ton of Nez damage because you're going to be playing so aggressively that you're going to have to hold yourself back so you're not getting hit by 18,000 Void Blades. At the start of the fight, the left and right side ads are going to spawn closer to the rally flag, and then as you get farther along in the fight, the ads will just spawn closer to Nezarec's side. You need to be ready for that shift. The biggest thing here is taking out the Colossus. If a runner gets tagged by some of those slowing missiles, it could be the difference between getting the cycle done quickly enough versus having to play it safe or even wiping. I don't really think you need to change much to deal with them though, as some form of grenade is going to chunk them enough that you can use whatever special weapon you have to finish them off, or if you're on a machine gun, then it's no worries at all. Again, I cannot recommend enough using a machine gun if you have the option to use a machine gun. I know a lot of people are going to be on rockets, but if you're not on rockets, dude, machine guns, they're so good. Also, a good chunk of ad clear is simply paying attention and staying focused on your job. If your role is ad clear, then try to maintain that focus unless called upon. You can roam to help others out with their enemies, but your priority is your side, and you don't want to leave your runners hanging with enemies. These enemies are so fragile that you can spawn kill them. Okay, they're really pathetic on normal mode. Again, I haven't even mentioned any subclass builds in the slightest. I think it's a far better skill to have to rely on your guns here, practice your weapon skills, and then integrate your subclass as you see fit. Once your gun skill is locked in, you'll be able to incorporate parts of your subclass, and that's going to make the experience even easier. Arc Hunters, Void, anything, as long as you have Devour, Solar Titan, Strand Warlock. If you're still learning, Strand is great for crowd control, but again, these enemies are so fragile that they don't need to be crowd controlled. They just fall over and die. When it comes to Master, you're going to want to utilize cover considerably more, but these enemies still go down incredibly quickly with some more subclass build support. The same loadouts from planets will continue to work here. Arbalest, Conditional, Riptide with Radiant proc. This all works the same way. The enemies just have a little bit more health and they hit a little bit harder. Just be aware of stomps from Colossus and you should be alright, provided you have some kind of healing effect. Again, Devour, Solar Titan, Sunspots, Arc Hunter has some stuff. Warlocks just have Healing Rift in general. You get it. It's not that hard to be good at ad clear. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be on ad clear as a role. But let's stop using the excuse of being ad clear as a way to dodge having to actually do anything in a raid or have any responsibility. Ad clear is a role. It's important, so take it seriously. If you're in a position to raid, you probably have some tools, some guns, a subclass build to enable you to be the ad clear god that you can be. Practice makes perfect. Go try some of these things in other bits of content. Get used to these guns in non-raid content, because if you can handle stuff in like Battlegrounds combat, there is no reason at all you cannot handle a normal mode raid. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.